Welcome back to the channel, friends. From the dawn of humanity, meat has been at the heart of the human story. It fueled our evolution, sharpened our minds, and powered our bodies to conquer new frontiers. But somewhere along the way, the narrative got flipped. We're told to fear meat, to view it as a threat to our health and the planet. But what if that's all wrong? What if, in our quest for modern dietary enlightenment, we've strayed too far from the foods that made us human? That's the question that sent me down a rabbit hole of research and completely transformed my understanding of nutrition. Let's face it, the modern world is obsessed with demonizing meat. But what if the real dietary demons are hiding in plain sight, disguised as healthy alternatives? It's time to pull back the curtain on the misinformation and uncover the truth about meat, our evolutionary heritage, and the power of a carnivore lifestyle. I'm not here to preach, I'm here to share my journey. A journey that began with questioning everything I thought I knew about nutrition and led me to a profound realization. Our bodies are hardwired to thrive on meat. You see, I used to buy into all the noise about meat being bad. But the more I learned, the more I realized our modern diet advice is about as stable as a newborn giraffe on roller skates. It might seem like our modern obsession with plant-based diets is just that modern. But the roots of this trend run surprisingly deep. To understand how we got here, we need to take a trip back to the 19th century, a time of radical social change and, unexpectedly, dietary upheaval. This was the era of the Industrial Revolution, a time when people were questioning everything from social structures to, yes, their dinner plates. Enter the Victorian vegetarian movement, a surprisingly powerful force driven by a mix of social justice, religious fervor, and a dash of good old-fashioned fear-mongering. Think of it as the original wellness craze. Influential figures like Sylvester Graham, the inventor of the graham cracker, preached the evils of meat, linking it to everything from physical ailments to moral decay. They tapped into anxieties about industrialization, urbanization, and the changing world, painting meat as a symbol of excess and indulgence. What's fascinating is how these 19th century anxieties still resonate today. The language might have changed, but the underlying message remains. Meat is something to be feared, controlled, and perhaps even eliminated entirely. But here's the thing. Ruminant animals, those magnificent cows, sheep, and goats, are not the enemy. They're actually key players in a healthy and sustainable food system. Think of them as nature's original recyclers. They take plants we can't even digest and transform them into nutrient-packed powerhouses like juicy steaks, creamy butter, and decadent cheese. Now let's tackle some of the most common anti-meat arguments head-on. Myth 1. Grain-fed cattle are destroying the planet. The image of grain-stuffed cattle, raised in crowded conditions, has become synonymous with unsustainable agriculture. And yes, concentrated animal feeding operations do come with their share of problems. But here's where things get interesting. Cows, like all ruminants, are designed to eat grass. In fact, they're remarkably good at it. Their digestive systems, equipped with a special stomach compartment called a rumen, can break down cellulose, the tough, fibrous stuff in plants that we humans can't even digest. Think about it. Vast swaths of our planet are covered in grasslands that are unsuitable for growing crops. Cattle, through the magic of their ruminant digestion, can transform this otherwise unusable resource into nutrient-dense food for us. So, when we point the finger at grain-fed cattle, we're missing the bigger picture. The problem isn't inherently the grain. It's the over-reliance on intensive feedlot systems that can lead to environmental problems. When managed properly, cattle can be a vital part of a regenerative and sustainable food system. It's not about demonizing cows or eliminating meat from our diets. It's about shifting our focus to regenerative grazing practices that work in harmony with nature, allowing these incredible animals to fulfill their ecological role as upcyclers of otherwise inedible plant matter. Myth 2. Plant protein is just as good as animal protein. Let's have an honest chat about protein. We're constantly bombarded with messages about the wonders of plant protein. But do beans and lentils deserve a spot on your plate? Are they really in the same league as their animal-based counterparts? Here's the deal. Protein isn't a one-size-fits-all nutrient. It's made up of building blocks called amino acids, and our bodies need a variety of them to function at their best. Animal proteins are often dubbed complete proteins because they naturally contain all 9 essential amino acids in the right ratios that our bodies need. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to build a house with only half the necessary materials. You might get started, but the structure wouldn't be as strong or resilient. That's kind of what it's like trying to fuel your body solely on incomplete protein sources. Now you can still get all the essential amino acids on a plant-based diet. It just takes more planning and careful food combining, and much more food. Myth 3. Livestock farming is an environmental nightmare. It's easy to see those images of industrial-scale operations and feel a pang of eco-guilt about that burger on your plate. And yes, poorly managed livestock production can be environmentally destructive. But here's the crucial caveat. It doesn't have to be this way. Ruminants have evolved over millennia to graze on grasslands. In fact, they play a vital role in maintaining the health and biodiversity of these ecosystems. When managed properly, grazing can actually be a force for good. Well-managed grazing is like a perfectly choreographed dance between animals and the land. By mimicking the natural movement of herd animals, we can stimulate plant growth, improve water infiltration, and even sequester carbon in the soil. We're talking about building healthy soil, increasing biodiversity, and creating more resilient ecosystems. It's about working with nature, not against it. So, the next time someone tries to tell you that all livestock farming is bad for the planet, remind them that it's not the cow, it's the how. By supporting regenerative grazing practices and responsible ranchers, we can enjoy meat as part of a sustainable and nourishing food system. Myth 4. Hormones in meat are dangerous. This myth has been circulating for years, fueling fears of frankenfood and unintended side effects. But before you swear off steak for fear of sprouting an extra limb, let's inject a dose of reality into this conversation. First things first, hormones aren't inherently bad. In fact, our bodies rely on a delicate dance of hormones for everything from growth and development to mood regulation and reproduction. And guess what? We naturally produce far, far more hormones than you'd ever find in a serving of meat, even meat from animals that have received hormone supplements. We're talking about comparing a thimbleful of water to an Olympic-sized swimming pool. The amount of hormones in meat is so minuscule that it's practically insignificant compared to the levels our bodies naturally produce and regulate. Moreover, in many countries, the use of hormones in livestock production is strictly regulated. Farmers and producers have to adhere to strict guidelines to ensure that any hormone residues in meat are well below safety limits set by regulatory agencies. So relax. That juicy steak isn't going to turn you into a hormonal Hulk. Focus on sourcing your meat from responsible producers and enjoy your meals knowing that those trace amounts of hormones are nothing compared to the symphony of hormones already orchestrating the amazing functions of your body. Myth 5. Omega-6 levels in meat are too high. All right, let's untangle this web of omega confusion and talk about those essential fatty acids that everyone loves to debate: omega-6 and omega-3. The claim that meat is inherently overloaded with inflammatory omega-6, throwing our bodies out of whack, has become a popular refrain in the nutrition world. But as with most things in nutrition, the reality is a bit more nuanced. Here's the key takeaway. The omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in meat isn't set in stone. It's highly dependent on what the animal ate. Just like humans, animals accumulate fatty acids from their diet. So, an animal raised on a diet of primarily grain will have a different fatty acid profile than an animal that grazed on pasture. Think of it like this. You are what you eat, and so are the animals we consume. Pasture-raised animals, with their diets rich in diverse grasses and forbs, tend to have a more favorable omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, closer to what our bodies thrive on. But here's another crucial point. Fixating solely on the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in isolation can be misleading. The bigger picture is about overall dietary balance. We need both omega-6 and omega-3 for optimal health, and the key is to consume them in healthy amounts from a variety of sources, such as egg yolks and fatty fish. So let's recap what we've learned on this journey. Meat, our ancestral fuel, has been unjustly vilified in our modern world. It's time to question the prevailing narratives and uncover the truth. We've debunked the myths surrounding meat, from the misconceptions about grain-fed cattle to the belief that plant protein is a perfect substitute for animal protein. We've explored the potential of regenerative grazing practices to create a sustainable food system, showcasing the symbiotic relationship between ruminants and the land. We've shed light on the negligible impact of hormones in meat and the nuanced nature of omega-6 fatty acids. Let's celebrate the role of meat in our human journey, recognizing the incredible benefits it offers when sourced responsibly. By supporting sustainable farming practices and informed decision-making, we can enjoy the nourishment and pleasure that meat brings to our lives while caring for our health and the earth. Break free from the chains of misinformation and fear, and reclaim your connection to the foods that sustained your ancestors throughout history. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, friends, and remember, live long, live strong, go carnivore.